Good evening. On behalf of the Cooper clan, I guess, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everybody who has been here throughout the day for the celebration of a truly wonderful and amazing man, my father, Thomas Cooper. I'm just going to give you, if you couldn't tell from the videos and pictures, just a quick overview of the wonderful life that he led. He was born in Dumbarton, Scotland, December 27th, 1933, to working class parents who, in their wonderful love for him and his sister, chose to immigrate to Canada in the early 1950s. They were amazing parents and supportive, much of which he continued as a grandfather to all the kids here today. And he moved to Canada 1951 and met our mother, Peggy, in Toronto. The true story is that they met at work. The great story is, and I know this has already been repeated numerous times already today, he was coming down off the boat on the ramp. My mom said, "That one's mine." Grabbed him by the ear, and he said, "I didn't know the customs of the country at the time, so I just kind of rolled with it." That resulted in a 56-year marriage that ended when my mom passed 10 years ago. But he was still the love of her life, and she was the love of his life by all ways of documenting that. I also want to pause for 1 second here to say something I meant to say at the start. I want to say welcome to friends and family far and wide in Canada and down in North Carolina, family and friends that couldn't make it due to travel or COVID restrictions, but still cared so much for my father. Family like Debbie Lankin, Debbie Allen, the Banton family, the Nailers, the Freeze, a lot of people, my niece Shannon Cooper down in North Carolina. So we welcome you here and hope you can appreciate the feelings for your grandfather and friend that everyone here are sharing. It's truly been a wonderful day, and he was certainly a man deserving of that. So my parents got married in 1956. They had met at a place called Avril Air, and it was a aircraft place for the government. The government, in its infinite wisdom, I guess we'll say, chose to shut the plant down, putting thousands of people in Toronto out of work, people who had very great talents. My dad was fortunately able to find a job with General Motors down here in Detroit. And when he was confirmed for the job, he said, "Do you need more?" And they said, "Yes, we do." And about 40 or 50 of his other friends and colleagues from Canada ended up here in the Detroit area. Truly amazing impact that he had even at that stage in his life. People that were friends of theirs for life who created great opportunities for themselves and for their children. And I know many of them had shared that with me over the years, that it was truly a wonderful thing that he did for them. Once he was down here at General Motors, I showed up in 1961. Brother Donnie showed up in 1963. David showed up in 67. We had a wonderful family life. My dad and my mother were so encouraging in so many ways, taught us to love sports, music especially, that fortunately has been passed down from us to our kids, although I don't necessarily like all of their music. But, of course, my dad hated Ted Nugent, too, so there's a story I'd love to tell, but I can't. He ended up working 29 years for General Motors, retired in 1987. And he did what at the time was an amazing thing that I don't think we'll ever see duplicated again. He and, again, so many of these friends of his that worked at General Motors ended up walking out one day as a General Motors person, walking in the next day, or on the following Monday, I should say, as part of a job shop, getting paid a pension, and getting paid more money by that job shop than General Motors was paid. So a great double dip that, again, helped his life, helped a number of their lives, and he worked in the remaining years of his career with companies such as Hotel Whiting, Magna, and Vima corporations. And in that time, he was a tremendously well-respected engineer and designer, and accomplished all of this with not even really the equivalent of a high school education. But he had the common sense, and he knew how things worked, and he knew how to make things work. And that made him an invaluable resource at all the places he worked. Unfortunately, at the age of 60, he was struck with macular degeneration, which unfortunately cost him his career at that time. However, despite that handicap, that basically set up in my mind and in my heart the second part of his life, which in some ways is even more amazing than the first part of his life. Despite this handicap, he never let it stand in his way. Obviously, he couldn't work anymore. He couldn't drive anymore. My mother handled that chore very, very well until her passing. But instead of sulking, going into depression, all the things that anyone could easily go into, he forged ahead and maintained the spirit and the friendliness and the sense of humor and the compassion that he had for everyone. And it was at that time, just after he lost his vision, the grandchildren came. And he threw himself into being as great a father as he was to me and to David and to Donnie. He was an even more amazing grandfather. And over the course of the rest of his life, he was committed to being as involved in sharing time, activities, wisdom, everything that you could imagine, and did it with a smile and a grace that I know all of the kids and grandkids feel to this day and will feel for a very, very long time. That part, he was with my mom until March of 2012 when she passed. He still lived independently for 8 years after that, before living in an apartment after getting out of the house that was his home for over 50 years. He has been a proud resident of Sterling Heights since 1965. And when we were talking about changes and where he was going to live, he was adamant. He was not leaving Sterling Heights. And part of that has manifested itself in the more recent years with why so many of you here tonight are here, his time at the Sterling Heights Senior Center, where, among other things, he was known as the king of the Zumba Club. He was also the Wednesday morning music director, something he really wanted to get back to, but unfortunately, the circumstances we've had to live in for 2 years didn't allow. We're going on the bus, we have some of the bus drivers here and the ladies that he rode on the bus with. He enjoyed that. And then there are so many friends here that have shared so many wonderful stories of their time with him that he threw himself into that, and that truly became the final fitting way for him to continue how he was with people. He was so proud of being able to help some of his lady friends off of the bus. He was always there to greet new people who joined the senior center. And it was something he immersed himself in. And he would not let me consider one place where he might live that was outside of Sterling Heights because of that. And I'm very thankful I listened to him. To see the people here tonight that are here remembering him and, again, celebrating his friendship and his enthusiasm, it was truly wonderful. And I thank you all for all the things you've shared with me already today and may share coming up here. So Tom has had an amazing, amazing life, growing up, working class in Scotland, coming to Canada, building a career, marrying a wonderful woman, raising a wonderful family, including all the grandchildren that he loves so much. And then, in these final years, despite a disability that would have stopped anybody, become one of the most recognizable people just from coming to all our kids' sporting events and being the guy with the binoculars. What his macular degeneration took away, his binoculars helped. And he could still make accurate coaching comments to especially Cameron and Brendan about what to do. And the best story I'll give you about Cameron was about 5 years old, and he was playing soccer. And at 5 years old, I'm sure anyone who's been involved in soccer knows that it's just a cluster. There's 4 or 5 kids from each side battling for the ball. And Cameron's talking to Grandpa, and Grandpa says, Cam, instead of just running into the big cluster, why don't you run around the cluster? Next game starts. Cameron remembers. Cameron scores 3 goals. Cameron runs off the field. Grandpa, it worked. That was what my dad did for all his grandkids in any way he could, all through his life. And that's why I know we all feel this loss so badly, but we also know how much he meant to his grandchildren especially. And so with that, I think you've gotten a great idea of what my dad was like. He was truly a wonderful friend to all of you here. He was a wonderful father and grandfather who, despite having a disability that would really slow people down or change their outlook and how they approached life, he never let it get in his way, being a true inspiration to all of us that immediately were around him and to generations beyond that. So thank you all for being here. David, your turn. David will be more funny than me.
I don't know about that. Hello, and like my brother said, thank you very much for everybody that has been here today. Before I start, literally though, if we were to sit here and tell stories, we'd pretty much have to book this place for about a week, easily, with all the different stories. But before we start, I wanted to read, this is and my father is the reason why I'm dressed like this today, okay? Just so everybody knows. He was the one that got me into the Scottish pipe bands, and even though at the ridicule of, junior high wearing a kilt is it's not the way to win and influence friends very well. But, we did it. It made him proud just to see it in that. So this is one small way I can honor him with this. But this is a Scottish Highland poem. You can shed tears that he's gone, or you can smile because he has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back. Or you can open your eyes and see that all he has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see him. Or you can be full of the love that you shared with him. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday. Or you can be happy for tomorrow because of what happened yesterday. You can remember him and only that he's gone. Or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back. Or you can simply do what he would have wanted. Smile, open your eyes, love, and go on.
Thank you.
Before we're, for people that haven't seen it, we're going to take a break in a minute to run the video for people who haven't seen it yet. But Glenn talking about his strong work ethic and the way he saw things, his insights were quite interesting, to say the least, at times. Just one I'll give right now is when he was talking about, he grew up during the war, and living in Dumbarton, his town was one of the major places where ships were being built. And the Germans bombed his city for almost 30 straight nights during the war. He would tell me that there were days that he would go into school and then realize that there was 2 empty seats. And he said nobody ever talked about it. You just knew that they were hit. And he was so matter of fact about it. But he said, yeah, we had boiled potatoes and pretty much was our daily staple. And every now and then, maybe we'd get a rasher of bacon. Well, when the pandemic hit, I was with him a lot more, especially after he had had COVID the first time. And I was cooking a lot for him. And I took him to Meijer one day. And it was still at the time when everybody's, loading up 3, 4 shopping carts. And everybody's still panic buying and everything. And I look over and here's my dad just standing there, and he's looking around and hearing all this, and he goes, "What a bunch of softies. They would have never lasted the war." He goes, "Live on potatoes for 2 straight months. My God, you go toilet paper. What the heck is that?" So that was just one of the many things. His insights for everything were always great. When it came to coaching, he was my mentor that really got me into coaching. And real quick, and this just shows you the type of person he was, and the grandkids will all know this with just his comment. I was blessed to have him as my soccer coach for over 10, 11 years. And in fact, there's one of my oldest friends, Dan, is here, who played for him. Other friends that weren't here, but he inspired many other coaches for people that he coached himself. But one particular game, we were in a state playoff game against our biggest rivals, which was the Ukrainians. Right, Mick, you're smiling at that one. You knew that. And I missed 2 empty netters right in front of the goal. We lost 1-0. I was heartbroken. It was right in front of the goal, put both of them right over the crossbar. I get in the car and I'm all slumped over. We had lost, we're out, and my father looks at me and says, "What's your problem?" I looked at him, I'm like, "Dad, I had 2 empty nets. I lost the game. Did you mean to do that?" No. "Did you try your best?" "Yeah." "Then don't worry about it." That really sums up the way he was, a lot about that. And like I said, we could stand here for hours and hours. Some people were talking earlier about him having his shoes welded to the boat of the first ship. That was, I don't know how that would go over in hazing, categories these days. That would probably be a jail offense to do that now. But yeah, that was one of the things when he first started at the shipyards, his very first day, they welded his feet to the deck and they gave him a chisel without a hammer and basically told him, "Figure it out." And his own father was working on the boat and he's like, "Dad, what am I going to do about this?" He goes, "You'll figure it out," and walked away. And he was there for like 6 hours with his feet welded. So with that being said, though, real quick, if everybody wants to take a look at the video board real quick, and we'll play it up because nothing else can really sum them up other than what you'll see here.
I'd like to say thanks to our wonderful piper, Dave Martin, for the beautiful hymns that he's playing here. We'd now like to welcome anyone who would care to come up and speak the remembrances of my father, and I don't think there's anyone better to start then his brother from another mother, his best friend for over 50 years, Malcolm McNeil.
This is going to be tough, folks. Tommy and I have been friends for, seems like ever. I can remember the first time we met them was at St. Luke's Presbyterian Church. And they were singing in the choir. And my late wife and I were teaching Sunday school. Well, they had 3 boys, and we had 3 girls. Pretty soon, we were out in the hallway, and the boys were telling their mom and dad that they had us for instructors and that they were Scottish. So right away, Tom and Peggy thought, well, we'll get to know them. So they introduced themselves, we introduced ourselves, and a relationship began that lasted forever. My mom, who was from Scotland, and my dad, who had passed away, couldn't wait to meet Tom. when I told her that I had just met a little Scot who had just come over from Britain or from Scotland, she just went. She was so excited, and at that time she was living up north, and with my sister because my dad had passed away, and so she would come down to visit us. So when she came down, first thing I had to do was call Tom. And I swear that went on for a lot of years. And every time Tom came over, he was very gracious, very nice to my mom. And they had great talks. He would talk to her about where she grew up and how it had changed. And she would ask him questions about that and what it was like now. And they did have great talks, great feeling for each other. And he enjoyed being with my mom and talking to her. They really enjoyed it. And I wanted to say, to start this out was, it's going to be a long time before I have lunch on Friday. Because I used to pick Tommy up. I'd come down, call him up and say, you ready to go? And he'd say, yeah. He'd say, call me 5 minutes before you get here. Well, I'd be driving along, there'd be traffic out there, and it'd be hard for me to call him. I'd get there, and I'd call him, and he'd say, you didn't call me 5 minutes ago. I'd say, all right. I said, next time. Well, a couple of times I did, but it was kind of tough. But pardon?
But you were there.
Oh, I was there. And we used to go to the New York Deli, all right? So we'd be up at the New York Deli, and as soon as we walked in, everybody knew Tom. And they'd come right over to us and say, where do you want to sit? So they'd pick a booth for us, and we'd sit down, and then he had a special. He'd get a breakfast special, which was 2 eggs, ham, cheese, and wheat toast sometimes, and then other times rye toast. And they'd always remember that. And they'd bring that to him and set him down, and we'd have our breakfast, and they'd come over and talk to us. And then the owner started coming over and talking to us. And last Christmas, we were sitting in there, and he walked over to us, and he said, how you guys doing? We said, good. And he said, it's on me today, you know. So it was so nice that he did that to us, but it was a memory that I cherish, the time that I spent with Tom. We'd kibitz on the way down there and kibitz on the way back. And there's one of the things when we'd be coming back, I'd pass one of the roads that we'd take down to get to his place, and he'd say, you just missed it. I said, no, I didn't miss it. I said, he could see this, and I said, we're going to go take a ride. We used to check some of the other restaurants that had closed because of the COVID to see if they were open, and they never were. So we'd run by my old house on Warren, and then I'd cut over and go up by Sterling Heights and run by his house and see if anything had happened there, if it burned down or something, you know. So, but it was a good relationship we had on that Friday, and then I found out later that he was coming with me for lunch, and after lunch he'd go home, and I'd get him home at 2:30. 4:30, the guys would pick him up that he was with at the senior center. They'd take him back to the deli for dinner. And I said, are you doing that on Fridays? He said, yeah. I said, well, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, I have dessert. I said, yeah, I know, but I said, I can come down on Thursday, so and then you don't have to worry about it. No, so it worked out. That's what we finally ended up doing. And but it was great. It was fun, and we did that for a good 12, 14 years. I was thinking it wasn't that long, but it was a long time because we moved from Warren to Clarkston, and I started coming down from Clarkston. We've been out there for a long time, you know. And sometimes I'd have to call them and say I had to turn around and go back because it's snowing pretty hard out here, you know. But I got a couple of notes here I had. But my mom, she really did enjoy his company. And Tommy was a great conversationalist. You could go anywhere you want. Anywhere you go, you could talk to everybody. I mean, by the time you get out of there, he knew half the people. And it was fun, though, because he was always gracious, always nice to people, good to people. And we'd have conversations about sports, soccer, baseball, hockey. I talk baseball, he'd talk soccer. So he would try to tell me how to play soccer, and I said, no, I don't know how to play soccer. I'm a baseball guy. And then we'd talk hockey because his 3 boys played hockey. My grandson played hockey, so it worked out good. And the funny part of it is when I met Tommy, he liked hockey and his boys were in hockey. And my wife had gotten me into hockey. I didn't like hockey at first game I went, I thought it was stupid. And then I saw the first fight, and it was fine, you know. So, but all the boys were playing hockey, and my girls were swimmers, so they just kept us busy all the time, running back and forth. But Tommy and I, he tried to talk me into soccer, and I tried to talk him into baseball. I think eventually he tried to like baseball, and I used to watch a little bit of soccer to see how it played, you know, see how it goes. But I had a lot of great memories with Tommy. I think about it. I just thought of one the other day that he was telling me a couple of weeks ago. He liked to sing Danny Boy. And from what he told me, they had a Christmas party, and he sang Danny Boy at the party. And everybody loved it. So there was the man might be here today. There was a man that lived across the hall from him who loved the way he sang it. And when Tommy came up walking down the hall, he saw him in the hallway, and he asked him, would you sing that for me? And Tommy said, sure, I'll sing it for you. And he sang it for him in the hall. And then he asked him again, would you do it again? And he did it again. Now that's being super guy. I'm telling you, he was super. And we used to talk about current events. We did a lot of talking about current events and everything that's going on, you know. And we enjoyed that. And I think I told you the story about, you saw it, maybe some of you saw it in a thing about golf. We go golfing. When he first lost his eyesight, we had been golfing before that when he had eyesight. And then he lost it, and I didn't think he'd go again. And he said, yeah, I'll go. So we went. There was a place in Royal Oak we used to go play golf. And he hit the ball pretty good, even though he wasn't able to see it as well. He used his peripheral vision. And, of course, when I hit the ball, it goes in the woods or it goes on the rough. So I'm looking for the ball. And he's out there, and he's waiting for me, and he's in partial fairway. So he comes over, and he says, what's going on? I said, I can't find my ball. He says, there it is, over there. I said, how'd you find that? You can't see. He said, radar, Mick, radar. Don't worry about it. So he could see a lot of things that you think he couldn't. And I did admire him. I admired him all my life because he never complained about his eyesight. He never complained about it. I think we used to go, we did a lot of things, but the 4 was my late wife and his Peggy, and we'd go to show. We did a lot of going to the show, and then we'd go out to Baker Square and have something to eat.
Baker Square.
Yeah. So Peggy would get in the front seat, and my wife would get in the back seat with Tom, because Peggy and we loved talking about movies, and my wife and Tommy, they loved talking about hockey. So they'd be back there talking about hockey. We'd be talking about the movies up front. It was crazy. But it was a great life. It was, and I got to take a look at this here. Yeah, he, let's see. Yeah, you told him about when he came over in the boat, right?
I got that one covered already.
Yeah, that was funny. I mean, I never forgot that with Peggy, because I asked her, "How'd you meet him?" She said, "I met him. I just pointed him out on the boat and said, 'That's mine.'" And I said, "That's what Peggy's doing up there now." Saying, "There he comes. That's mine." Yeah, so and but you know, during the war, I don't know if you touched on it. I didn't know for sure, but during the war, he used to tell me that the planes would fly over his house, and they were on their way to London to bomb London, and the pilots would wave at them that were in the plane when they were going over because they were flying low. Mm-hmm. And he said they would wave at us as they were going past. And I said, "God, that's amazing." And he said, "Yeah, he went through a lot, you know, in his lifetime." But he was a great guy. I mean, I just love the guy. He's like a brother. I think he was like a brother to me. You know, I always wanted a brother, and I always thought of him as my brother. I could always go to Tommy and say, "I got a problem here and I got a problem there. What do you think?" "Oh, you know what he did too?" I just found this out, and I think I remember it, but my daughter works at General Motors also. And Tommy told her when she was in college, "Take some drafting courses." So she did, and she's been there 30 years. So we thank Tommy for that too. I mean, he did a lot for people. He really did. And but it's a tough road to go right now. And I can still remember him and I going to the restaurant, and he was fine. We were talking and just enjoying life.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's part of my memory. I got tons of stories I could tell. But thank you for coming, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
Before Glenn introduces the next person, real quick, sports and stuff with my mother had kind of a weird impact. On my father's third date with my father had played rugby also in Toronto, and she took him to her first rugby match. And she asked him, "Well, what position do you play?" And he said, "I play hooker," which she didn't know the terms of rugby, which immediately raised a few eyebrows. But a hooker is somebody that goes in on the scrums. They're the ones that are all locked together when they put the ball in. And my dad was in this, and this guy in there, much bigger than them, brought his knee up and caught my dad square in the face, completely opened his nose up. And he doesn't know where he's at. He staggers back to the touch line. He's got blood coming down, and the trainer just looks at him and grabs a wet sponge. Sponged his face. "You're good. Go back in." We called it the magic sponge from there on. It cures everything. And my mother's sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, this guy, he should be unconscious." And he went back in. Does that account for anything that happened later? I don't know. But but I wanted, because Mr. McNeil talking about that was in the first hockey game they went to, they had back then the glass was like chain link fence. And somebody went into the boards, and they were sitting together in the corner. This was another one of their early dates. And this guy came in and for that, I think it was Gordie Howe.
It was Gordie Howe. Who
And
took this guy's face and
just
grated him like cheese.
all across. And he said, and the guy who was the unlucky one, he was looking at my mom the whole time. And she's like, "Okay, this will be getting used to." So I'll turn it back to Glenn.
Thanks for that. That was good. All right. We'd now like to welcome the true light of his life over these past 25, 30 years. If whoever wants to come up and talk about your grandfather for a moment, that would be wonderful. Oldest first, just like here.
Yeah, Mr. McNeil, that was amazing. I'm not sure I'm going to follow that, but this bear with me. First of all, thank you, everyone that's here tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Cameron. I'm Glenn's oldest son. But just want to start by saying I've been blown away really in the last couple of days. Just the support I see and hear, people reaching out to me that I hadn't seen in 15, 20 years, and growing up playing hockey, and kids that I played with when we were 8, 9 years old texting me, just remembering my grandpa, seeing him around the rink and talking to him, and just kind of really put things into perspective. And I really thought I knew all there was to know about him and how great of a guy he was, and to find out there's so much more. It's been quite the roller coaster, obviously. But I don't have anything written down. I didn't think that there was anything that I could put into words that would do him justice. So I'm just going to let this ride, and hopefully you guys are along for it. So, but obviously, I think I can speak for all the grandkids confidently that, how lucky we were, just from the things that I've already heard, and no secret, the type of man he was, and how he'll be remembered, and just couldn't have asked for a better role model in any facet of life, really. The relationship him and my grandma had is something that I hope to, God, I hope we can, even my future wife and I can, have a fraction of that, because it was incredible. And just the things I'll miss and things I'll remember, and just Werner's floats on a Saturday morning in their kitchen. Yeah, just it was the little things. And I think, as I've kind of reflected in the last couple of days, it was the little things that made him the happiest. It wasn't anything fancy. It wasn't, a big drawn up production with anything. It was, you want to go get a 99-cent coney. And that was the things that made him the happiest. And, I think that's kind of rubbed off on us, and this, the going to the Avenue at 15 and Van Dyke, right across from his old apartment. And it was just wanted to spend time and to share stories and just to talk. And there's things I'm going to forget, but selfishly, I want him here so bad, because there's just a lot more. He had so much more life. He had so much more life to live and to see. And, but I said selfishly, I want him here. I want him to be at, my wedding, at my brother or sister's wedding, and Kaylee and you and Tony's wedding. All of us and all the things we're going to go through in life and do.
He'll be there. He'll be there.
But God, just the lessons, the stories, like, yeah. The binoculars became infamous with my friends and teammates. They didn't know what the hell was going on. Because you meet the guy for the first time, and there's no way he's blind, right? Like, he just doesn't miss a thing. As I learned to drive and started taking him around, I would take him to his cardiologist, Dr. Rojas, pretty regularly, and just be me and him in the car, and usually be going to Coney after, and the guy's telling me where to turn. Just like, what do you mean? Like Mr. McNeil said, just you're not supposed to be able to see that, but same thing. He taught me. Sorry, go ahead.
You remember the croquet story, Mackinac?
No, you'll have to tell that one. I don't. Yeah, I don't. That one's not coming to memory. But yeah, he taught me how to golf. Imagine I'll be able to tell my kids that I learned to golf with the help of my dad. But he, my blind grandfather taught me how to golf. So
Blind, left-handed.
Yeah, left-handed too. And he would go out there, and he'd have he had the clubs, and he had the bright yellow tape on it so he could see, and he used the bright yellow golf balls. And he couldn't drive a car, but he could drive a golf ball, man. And that was pretty cool. And I actually drove by the par 3 course over by our house, where he taught me a lot, taught me my short game, taught me the bump and run, which I'll never forget. Hasn't helped lower my handicap yet, but we're working on it. So, but yeah, I mean, he just did everything for all of us. Never, whatever it was, hockey, soccer, dance, band, whatever we were into, he was our biggest fan. He really did. He did everything for us, and my grandma, they were incredible. And what I'd give to be 12 years old again, coming home from a game and giving my grandma a call, let her know we're about 30 minutes away, and she'd have cookies made every time. And no matter how I played, again, going back to the sight thing, sometimes I believed him, because he'd come off, I thought you played great, and a couple turnovers, you lose a game, you play bad, whatever it was. It just, he didn't see it that way. And, again, selfishly, I think we all want him here so bad. And just to wake up and crack a joke or whatever. And just this last Thanksgiving was probably the best holiday that we've had in 10 years, and he was sharp as ever. That was all time. And I'm so thankful that I'll have that, and we'll have that as a family. But my grandma waited long enough, and that's the only thing that's been able to kind of ease this a little bit, is that they're back together. So again, thank you guys all so much for being here. This means more to myself and my family than I'll ever be able to say. So thank you, and I want to remember him the right way, and there's so many right things to remember. So thank you guys.
I'll bring up my wonderful and brilliant daughter, as I used to refer to her, beautiful and brilliant daughter, who he was so proud of for her becoming a nurse. This is McKenna.
Hi. I wasn't expecting to say anything, so I don't have anything prepared, and I'm not a good public speaker. But some of my favorite memories, one that came to mind in the last couple days, is at my grandma's funeral 10 years ago. He lost the love of his life, but the whole time he held my hand. And let me cry on his shoulder while he held it together for all of us. And another thing is he always opened and closed my grandma's door and buckled her and handed her the seatbelt, buckled it in. And he did that for me and my mom all the time after she passed. He carried on his gentleman traditions and did that for us. He was so proud that I was a nurse. Always said I should have been a doctor too. But he told everyone. And I bump into one of his friends, and he's like, "Oh, you're the nurse, the granddaughter nurse." I found out tonight that one of his friends that he talked to me about donated money in my name to the hospital because she heard so many stories from my grandpa. And even in the hospital, the nurses, when I call and check to see how he was doing, he's like, "Oh, you're the nurse granddaughter." Even then, he was so proud. I think about the times that he played the Cookie Monster game. He had a Winnie the Pooh cookie jar. And he loved to go and whenever we'd go for the cookies, he'd be like, I can't remember the exact words, but he'd try to snatch the ladder, snatch our hand, and said, the Cookie Monster's coming to get you. And he was a very hands-on grandpa. We had sleepovers at his house all the time where we'd watch TV, cartoons, play the Cookie Monster game, play outside. That was, I think, the most athletic times that I ever really had was in his backyard with him. We'd have so many holidays at his house. Christmas Eve was always a good tradition at their house. And they always made it special for us. Okay. I can't, nothing else is coming to mind right now because it's a little foggy, but thank you all for being here and showing your love for him. We really appreciate it.
All right. The big B, Brendan.
You guys are going to have to bear with me here for a minute. I'm already getting choked up just walking up here. I didn't have anything prepared myself, but I didn't really think writing something down could do enough justice to this to really say what kind of a man and what kind of a grandfather, father, husband that he was. I have a lot of great memories with him. Not all of them may come to mind today, but one of the first things that, I was way too young to remember, but I hear so many times over and over again from my mom, and, my sister, and I see pictures from the trip, was went to Disney World. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but
2001,
one
week after 9/11.
Well, I'll put a damper on that one, but there was the Buzz Lightyear ride, which I don't know if it still exists anymore, but Buzz Lightyear, Toy Story, that was my thing when I was a kid, and he rode that ride with me 30 plus times straight. Never complained once. Every time the picture got better and better because we knew exactly what to aim for. Every time, it's just never had a complaint in the world. Wanted to just make me happy, and that's the kind of man he was. Outside of that, I was outside of David as well. And after me and Neil, we were soccer boys. Soccer was the biggest thing in the world to him. See, United, my favorite team to this day, and for the longest time, we watched Premier League mornings and watched United. Fortunately, struggled the last few years, but no, they. I told him the other day. The last things I said to him was, United gave him one last win. United gave him one more thing to be happy about over a long period of struggle, and he squeezed my hand after that, and I knew he was happy to hear it. He was my soccer coach, outside of my dad being my first.
I learned it from him, so.
Yeah. He, every game he had, a compliment sandwich. He, would tell me something good, tell me something I could have done a little bit better. But, things happen, and go right back to, the compliment. He never wanted me to leave a game feeling like something was my fault or that, I wasn't good enough to be there. Gave me all the confidence in the world to be the best player on and off the field. He was a big believer in no matter what you did, you have to be a better person outside of it. And I don't think there's any person that I'll ever have ever met that exemplifies being a great person in and outside of what you do on a daily basis. He's my biggest role model. It's going to be really hard, to fill the void outside of just having great memories of being with him and through soccer and school. Academics is my kind of thing. We can't say much of the same for me or Cam, but he was proud of us nonetheless. And the best thing was something that my my dad mentioned earlier was, the trip that we took to Scotland, or not to Scotland, to England, to see some Premier League games and to see United live. It was the greatest experience. I'll never have anything like it again. Something I'm going to hold with me vividly and dearly forever. And just one picture that always comes to mind, and, I'll make sure I never lose it, through all the technology and phones, how that can go. But it was me and him just looking out over Anfield, which is in Liverpool. And, my dad took it from behind us, and, I can just remember it vividly. We were talking soccer, and he was just reminisced on how proud he was of me just throughout what I had done and what I had been through, and that I worked so hard all those years, and that just, he was proud of me for where I had taken it and the path that I had chose. I guess I don't have a whole lot more to say, because it's hard to put, it's hard to put into words what he meant to so many people, and seeing how many, seeing everybody who came through here today and all the kind words like Mr. McNeil. It's hard to say goodbye, but, he'll always be here. And I'm just happy that after 10 years, he's back with my grandma. I hope one day I can have something that, mirrors that. So thank you again all for being here.
Thank you, Brendan. Dave, who else? Okay, what?
I'm going to introduce Neil.
Okay, good.
Before Neil speaks, one of the biggest things my father always said, what he loved so much about all of his grandchildren, and he did tell me this before. He goes, every single one of my grandchildren has something unique. And he really, really wanted to, he really zoned in on what it was, With Shannon, it was her with her games when she was growing up and the things that they would do in the basement together. With Cameron, it was hockey. With McKenna, it was her schoolwork and becoming a nurse. With Brendan, it was your soccer. With my daughter Kaylee, it was she loved her artwork, and she was showing the artwork. And with Melody, the biggest thing that he loved is that, she was in band and she was in drama club, and, the excitement on his face when you'd say, oh, she's got a show this week. And you'd just be like, this is great. I can't wait to go see it. And with Neil being the other soccer player, and Brendan, to follow up, I never told you the story how we got Manchester United. Because I asked my dad when I was little, I go, why is Manchester United our team? The answer, because it is. Live with it. And that was it. So that's how we got on this path. But right now, his grandson Neil, who just came up from South Carolina, for this, he wants to say a couple of things.
Oh, holy crap! What more can I say about my grandfather? He was just the things that he would tell you and the things that he would teach you is just, you hold on to that forever. I remember when I was playing soccer at Total Soccer, I was like 6 years old. Guy was on my butt to use my darn left foot for like months, and I remember I scored like 5 goals that game. I guess I was doing pretty good, and the only goal he cared about was the one I scored with my left foot. And he was like, I walk up to him, I'm like, Grandpa, I used my left foot, and he's like, oh, so it does work. I was like, yeah, so that guy, and then obviously I made the smart decision freshman year to try playing football, and when I told him about it, he was like, football? You're going to get your head taken off. He was like, why don't you kick the ball? And I was like, well, and then there we go. So now I'm down in South Carolina playing football and kicking the ball good as ever. He just told my dad if I could try kicking it left-footed, believe it or not, because apparently right-footed just won't do it. So he wants me to try to do both. But yeah, just the confidence he would have in you. He'd always believed in you. And I was playing in goal in soccer. I could have had a game. There was one game I missed my defender played it back to me. I completely whiffed the ball. The kid tapped it in, and I was obviously pretty PO'd about that. And he was like, "Well, it was your defender's fault anyway." So, it was never my fault. But yeah, he was just I can't even express enough how much appreciation I have for the lessons he told me, just how good of a man he was to my grandmother. I really wish I could have just a fraction of what he did. Yeah, that's it.
And right now, my daughter, Kaylee, is going to come up. And last year, one of the nicest moments that he enjoyed so much with her when he found out that she was engaged to her wonderful, soon-to-be son-in-law, Tony, and the excitement with that. So this is my daughter, Kaylee.
Hello, and like everyone else, did not plan anything to say or write. Looking back at my grandfather, all I can think of is all the times when we were all little, and every summer we would at least see him and Grandma, and it was always a blast, and we never wanted to go back home. And I bet our parents would go, "Okay, keep them." But every time we were there, he would always just come to either me, my sister, my cousins, and always just hang out with us. Whether it was games he would create, like either Cookie Monster or the Monster Man, where he would just chase us all around. Either play house, dolls, or soccer. No matter what, he would always make sure to spend each time with you. No matter what topic or whatever interest you were in, he would make sure to be in it and to make sure that he was there for you.
You gave him a lot of interesting hairstyles.
That was Melody. But even if you met him the first time, already you love Papa and you always ask, how is he doing? And always invite him and make sure he was there. And then in the end, he would go, how much he enjoyed it, how much he loved it, and just brag about us no matter what. And it's like going on back what Cameron said, how we wish there was more time and just extra, just to be part of whatever next milestone we all have to look forward to, or what's about to come. And trust me, I wish we have extra time and more with Papa, so he can tell us more about another story, regardless if we heard it already, or to talk about the next song he heard, whether it's from Josh Groban. And really gonna miss the hugs that he gave.
And now I'd like to have my daughter Melody come up.
Hello. This is hard. Papa was a amazing man, but you all know that. He was always there for everyone. And there's just so much great things he's done for everyone. God. Sorry. Can't even think of all the great things. There's just so many to choose from, but he always was there for us whenever we needed him, no matter what, or If we had anything going on, he was always there. He loved being with us and the grandkids and supporting us through all of our stuff, no matter what it was. I remember always coming over and he had some new music to show me all the time. The last one he showed me was like some clarinet jazz player, because I played the clarinet for so long. He was always so happy about his music. He would always show up to my concerts, or if I had competition for dance or anything else, he was always there. I'm gonna miss him a lot. But sorry. He was so amazing. I can't. There's no words to describe Papa. He was great. I know Grandma is probably so happy right now to be with him. He was there for me when my mom passed too. She loved Papa, and I know he loved her too. I'm just glad they're all together again. Feel the same way. I just wish I had so much more time with him. Sorry. Just, yeah. Couldn't ask for a better man. Great grandfather, great dad, great husband. So great. There's nothing else I can say. Just a great guy, you know. Yeah. That's all.
Okay. Well, obviously, he meant a ton to his family. And I also know he meant a ton to a lot of people in Sterling Heights and other parts of the country, in the city. If those of you who've shared these last really, truly wonderful years that he spent at the Sterling Heights Senior Center and at his favorite place in the world, Dodge Park, those of you who'd care to come up, you are now welcome to share some stories. And then we'll hear from the Piper one more time, and we'll finish our wonderful remembrance of the wonderful Tom Cooper. So the mic is open. Okay. David then has something to read, and we'll be able to go from there.
Okay. Again, from everybody in the family, thank you so much. You know, again, I'm so happy with that we had family up in Canada that were able to see this today, and just so many people for the whole day so many people throughout the whole day that were able to show up, and all of you, I mean, on a Saturday night, to be able to come out and do this with us, it actually means the world to us, and proves once again just how special he was to so many people, so many lives he touched, so many great things he did. And there's nothing prouder, Glenn will back this up, that when you can stand in front of people and just say, what a great man. And it's not just, we're not saying it because he's gone. We've said it for years and years and years. And you have so many people that just say, he was a great man. And just nothing makes you feel more proud, you know, and to have him in his life. And I'm like Cameron. I'm going to miss my phone calls after the first period of the hockey games, like we were doing for a long time. Because he's like, I don't stay up after the second period anymore. And, you know, telling me how Manchester United, how their formation was wrong. And I hate it when they pass the ball back. And I'm like, you can see all this. Oh, yeah, it's horrible. And so I just have one more thing to read before we finish up. And this is another Highland poem that is called Death is Nothing at All. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we lived so finely together is untouched, it's unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, we are that still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you've always used. Put no difference in your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow for me. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, and pray for me. Let my name ever be the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effort or with the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it was ever meant to be. It is the same as it ever was. There is an absolute, unbroken continuity in us. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am waiting for you, but just for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well, nothing is hurt, nothing is lost. One brief moment, and it will be as it was before. And how we will laugh at the trouble of our parting when we all get to meet again. Dave?